you guys remember Rex Tillerson, I'm not a creature of Washington. I'm from outside of Washington. Well, it didn't take him long to assimilate, did it? Because one got the impression right away that Rex Tillerson was a swamp creature faster than anything, a faster conversion than I'd ever seen. And he found himself at odds with President Trump on a lot of issues. I don't think guys like me didn't trust Rex Tillerson's State Department to be of any help to the president in these negotiations with North Korea. Why? Because the career guys there in the State Department were responsible for giving us a nuclear-armed North Korea in the first place. It was their fault. And I went round and round about this with some lefties. Oh, the State Department, they're career folks and they know the language and they know the culture. It's like, so what? I judge people by their results. Their results. And the result of this State Department's work is pretty simple to divine. The result is a nuclear-armed North Korea, and that, in my mind, is a failure. And there are guys that have been in the State Department since the very beginning of the problems with North Korea, or just coming in during the Clinton administration and on up through the years. And we've relied on their, quote, expertise all the way through. And sorry, those are the folks I thought we needed to leave at home. Those are the folks I thought that we needed to have in the back seat. And Rex Tillerson was all, hey, let's bring them all along. We're all team. No, I don't think we're all team. I think there's a lot of leaking going on in that State Department. It was very much Hillary Clinton, very much John Kerry's State Department still. And Rex Tillerson didn't go in there with a sledgehammer that I believed he needed. And to clean it out because he wanted to be everybody's friend. And I and many other conservatives wanted an effective State Department. We didn't want Rex Tillerson to go in there and glad hand. And I don't want you guys to misunderstand this as me being critical of Rex Tillerson as a man. I think that his instincts as a CEO, where you went in, you shook hands, and you made a relationship, I think that's fine in the boardroom, and I think that's fine in business. But government is a different animal. You have to demand excellence in government, or people die. And rogue regimes get nuclear weapons, and that's exactly what we saw with the current State Department. And we're to believe that there is nothing else that could be done. Nothing else that could be done that the State Department didn't do. Well, it turns out that's not true, because Donald Trump came in with this fire and fury mentality and said, you know what, I'm going to do things different and we're going to get a different result. And guess what? The North Koreans, though they're likely lying because they're communists, they lie. And I don't trust communists, and neither should you. Communists suck. Communists are liars. Communists are backstabbers. Communists are killers. Communists are the scum of the earth. But they're likely lying. But even if they aren't, their lead-off lie, anyway, is denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And, oh yes, we accept the United States doing joint exercises with South Korea, which has never been on the table before from a leader like Kim Jong-un. So Tillerson leaving, I think, well, first off, it's an upgrade. We get Mike Pompeo, who I do believe is the guy to clean out that State Department. He still had a lot of work to do in the CIA. And by the way, that reminds me of who, well, we'll discuss this throughout the day. We've got a guest coming on from the RNC to talk about, he's a spokesperson for not only the RNC, but also for the White House and Vice President Pence. We'll ask him about the left protesting the first female CIA director. Yeah, we're all rah-rah women. Oh, the first female CIA director? Nope, we're going to oppose her. She was associated with keeping America safe from radicalized Islamic fundamentalist terrorists. She treated them badly. Wow. See, now, if the Democrats continue to behave like that, they're going to lose many other races in the future. They're not going to be winning much of anything. But if they behave like they actually love America, like they actually care about what happens to America, they may win some races. 281-558-5738, 281-558 KSEV. It's the Chris Salcedo Show. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Chris Salcedo Show. I'm glad you've tuned into the program. 281-558-5738, 281-558 KSEV. Let me get a call in here. Hey, Bill, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. What say you?
Hey, good morning, Chris. I go back to what Bill Clinton said when he was president. He says, "Fool you once, shame on me. Fool you twice, shame on you."
Wasn't that Bush?
And,
didn't Bush screw that up?
No, well, I think that also. I remember Clinton was saying that too. Bush, I'm sure, yeah.
I remember Bush infamously going, "Well, if you fool me once, you're never going to fool me again." he forgot
exactly.
He forgot the axiom there.
If you go back to the League of Nations, which we were never part of, Hitler, and then of course you got the communists after Korea, and the communists after Vietnam, and then of course Saddam Hussein. Before that, I hadn't thought about it until during the break, and Jimmy Carter was not only fooled but duped by the Ayatollah Khomeini, and we are still paying for that price back then. And it's a psychological thing. Okay, I want them to do this, so I'm going to say the opposite because that's not what I really want. I want this other thing. So they're going to go along and they're going to fall right into play, and that's exactly what they've been doing.
Well, Jimmy Carter, I believe he was duped, and I believed he believed that everybody had some inherent good in them. When it came to Barack Obama and these lifers inside of the State Department, I think they know all the despotic regimes that we deal with. I think they know the bad actors they are, but all they say is, well, they deserve being that way. It was America that made them that way. So it is that's how they sleep at night, saying, oh, well, we're leveling the playing field or what have you. I think there's really a psychosis going on there with a lot of liberals who populate the State Department.
And also there's another thing that I've been saying this for some time. People agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. But the thing is that what I was seeing that they were trying to do was trying to make the Muslim into a worldwide theocracy. But they were working like with Libya. They got rid of Gaddafi. Mm-hmm. And when the Muslim Brotherhood took over, they were supporting them. But when they lost, they didn't support the people that took over, that defeated the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, yeah, a lot of this was Obama, though.
Assad, too. Now, they were not so-called. Why wasn't he going after Iran? Because they're already that way. Why is he going after Saudi Arabia? They're already that way.
Yeah.
And the others were that's why they were trying to do. In the Mideast, I think that they were trying to do in the beginning what Hitler was trying to do in Europe.
Well, that's all. Everything you just mentioned was all Obama's doing, and Obama was a big fan of a radicalized Islamic fundamentalist dominated Middle East for whatever his reasons were. Some say it's because he's a Muslim, a closet Muslim. Some say he just hates the United States, which is kind of where I fall. I just think he dislikes this country. So he's inclined to prop up America's enemies, whether they be in the Middle East, whether they be in North Korea, whether they be in China. Bill, thanks for the call, man. I appreciate it. 281-558-5738, 281-558 KSEV. Where am I going to start? See, let me start here. Donald Trump yesterday in San Diego, speaking to the military. And I want you guys to hear what the subject matter is, and I want you to hear the military's response. You ready for this?
That could be the big breaking story. Look at all those people back there. Look at that. Oh, that fake news. Oh.
Listen to that reaction to fake news.
They know, they understand.
First off, you could sense the connection between the military and Donald Trump. The mutual love and respect there, number one. Number two, I find it fascinating that it is an ongoing running joke with the American people about the basket of biased press. That those who are in the press are now a punchline. Everybody gets the joke because everybody knows they're in the tank for Democrats. Everybody knows that the basket of biased press is not an honest actor. 80% of the press is pulling for one political party. You know, I get emails from a lot of Democrats out there, and a lot of them are like, how, and you're hearing this a lot today. Democrats saying, oh yeah, all these evangelicals, they're all hypocrites. All these Christ believers are all hypocrites because they back a guy who's had a very, shall we say, seedy personal life. And these are the same people who don't get us to begin with. But I don't know that electing a Democrat would have improved that situation. I mean, you guys know the Democrat Party is now the anti-Christian, anti-Jewish party, anti-white party. You know the Democrat Party, 8 now, I think it's 8 of its members have ties with the anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan, and they refuse to answer for their ties and their relationship with Louis Farrakhan, who is a vehement racist and anti-Semite, hates America, but he's allowed to spew his drivel here, living under the very same protections of free speech that he would spit upon. So I guess my whole point in bringing this up is a couple of things. We didn't hate Barack Obama because of the man he was. We despised his policies because they were anti-American. Now, I wasn't fond of Obama as a person because I know he hated this country and because I know that he wanted to turn this country into something that was going to destroy my children's opportunity in the future. And so I opposed that, and I didn't really appreciate him as a human being for taking that stance. But what we disliked about Donald Trump were all of these policies. What we opposed wasn't necessarily the man all the time. Now, when he came down on Christianity, I didn't think too highly of the man. When he said, we Christians were on our high horse, and he never condemned violence from Islam. When he told America of a beheading of an American citizen, then 20 minutes later was out on the golf course, I didn't think too highly of him as a man at that point. But the vast majority of our objection to him was his policies, what he was doing to us through the force of government. So here comes Donald Trump, and the left wing, they either don't make an effort or they're just dishonest about who we are and what we value. But they say, oh, if this had been a Democrat with 3 marriages and yada, 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 and on and on and on, you Republicans would be all over. You conservatives would be all over him. Well, Donald Trump, I didn't elect a preacher. Now, do I like the fact that Donald Trump had that type of seedy past? No. Do I believe that he's on a different path now? Yes. He used to be pro-choice. He's now adamantly pro-life because he had an epiphany, a conversion, whatever you want to call it. So he's a different guy. But we folks in the conservative movement, in the Christian community, the Jewish community, I don't think we vote on our religion. There are some people who do, and that's okay. But I'm saying the vast majority of us are voting for this guy's policies. And Donald Trump is a superior president because, in my mind anyway, because he's pro-American. That's a step up from the last guy. I'll talk more about this coming up. Chris Salcedo Show. You found us on the Voice of Texas.
Mike. That's what day it is. Hey, Kev, guess what day it is?
Hump Day on the Voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV, the day after the election. For those of you getting up, just hitting the snooze button on the alarm, the race is too close to call in Pennsylvania's 18th. We went over this in the in the first hour. It's a largely symbolic victory for whichever party pulls this out. But there are cautionary tales for both political parties. Cautionary tales for the Republicans because this district was a slam dunk. It should have been a slam dunk for the Republicans, 20 points plus for Trump in the 2016 election. So the Democrat enthusiasm is definitely on the upswing in other parts of the country. Not here in Texas, but in other parts of the country, sure. And so that's a cautionary tale. And the Republican candidate was pretty weak. Now, the cautionary tale for Democrats is this. This Democrat ran as a Republican. His issues were mostly a center-right type guy. Pro-Second Amendment, pro-gun, pro-right of self-defense. That's how he's getting these votes. He ran as a centrist. He ran away from the extreme left like Elizabeth Warren or Nancy Pelosi. So all you libs who think, being like Al Green and showing a whole bunch of love to Louis Farrakhan, the Jew hater, is going to get you votes. Think again. By the way, I'm going to be posting up later today on the Chris Salcedo Show Facebook page a graphic of all of the congressional black communists who have relationships or ties with Louis Farrakhan, the vehement anti-American, hate-filled, a Nation of Islam leader who is a vehement anti-Semite. And these Democrats in the congressional black communists have not repudiated Louis Farrakhan, have not distanced themselves from Louis Farrakhan. As a matter of fact, the number 2 guy at the Democrat National Committee says, Democrats don't care that I have a relationship with a Jew hater. We Democrats get away with that. We Democrats can get away with what we want. We could be as racist and as bigoted as we want to be. The basket of biased press won't hold us accountable, and neither will our colleagues, and neither will those who vote Democrat. Because it's okay for us to be racist. We're the good racists. We're the good bigots, says the first Muslim congressman elected to Congress up in Minnesota. Anyways, that's Keith Ellison. I wanted to finish out what I was talking about here because I want to get into something that Town Hall News had just a minute ago that I thought was worthy, and it's going to give me an excuse to read a letter that was written by a teacher, and I think that might spark a little discussion this morning between you and me. But back to Trump and his calling out of the basket of biased press out there in California and the reaction from the military. Everybody gets this. Everybody knows and understands the bias that exists in the press, and then they're in the tank for one political party. The pretense is all but gone. So, and the American people don't like it. And that's why Donald Trump gets applause when he calls out the biased press, and it's why guys like Chuck Todd and Tom Brokaw get their panties in a twist when it happens. Because so long as nobody with a bigger megaphone than they have calls them out, so long as that doesn't happen, then they can be as biased as they want to be. Shovel all this stuff that they call news, which is really a bunch of garbage. Had to clean that up. Shovel all this stuff all day long to those who watch, and they would never know the difference. Now you've got the President of the United States saying, this is unacceptable. These guys are given a constitutional charge to be fair. It's a free press, yes, but with that freedom comes responsibility, no? And too many of these guys have come up in journalism school, which is decidedly left, and they've abandoned all pretense of objectivity. Case in point, they hold Donald Trump accountable for far less egregious things than they didn't hold Barack Obama accountable for. Barack Obama gave money to the number 1 state sponsor of terrorism, our money, and put it on pallets in the middle of the night with unmarked, untraceable foreign currency. In essence, Barack Obama used our taxpayer money to fund terrorism under this guise that, we were paying back a debt that we owed. We didn't owe this Iranian regime a penny. We owed the deposed Iranian regime, the Shah, the money. They were the ones who contracted with us back in the 1970s for these fighter planes. This usurping government in Iran now, the Ayatollah and his minions, we didn't owe them a penny. But Barack Obama said, let me be clear. I want to give the mullahs and these terrorists a whole bunch of American money. Find a way. And his people found a way. And he funneled money. And not only that, he also made sure these same terrorists would be nuclear weapons capable, unopposed, with no restrictions within 10 years. Now we got 6 years left. This is another reason why Tillerson was let go, was because Trump said, this deal stinks. This deal sucks. Because it paves the way for Iranian nukes. And Tillerson said, no, we got to keep them in it and let it be some other president's problem. And Donald Trump says, I didn't come here to pass on problems to the next president. I came here to solve the problems I was handed. And Iran's a big problem. And a Middle Eastern chaos was a big problem handed to this president from the previous occupier of the Oval Office. So the broader point here is this. When I see them coming down on Trump for doing things that you and I, probably would never have, we wouldn't elect a Democrat who did the same thing. And this is what they're saying. Well, if this were a Democrat, you would be all up in arms. Well, it's true, because why would we accept a Democrat with a shady past and all their policies suck too? Why would we do that? But with Donald Trump, you get an instantaneous upgrade from Barack Obama. Donald Trump is pro-American. Barack Obama wasn't. Donald Trump is. Donald Trump dislikes and kills radicalized Islamic fundamentalist terrorists. Barack Obama didn't. Donald Trump, the economy is roaring. Regulations have been lifted. Barack Obama didn't do that. Barack Obama passed the largest tax increase in American history. It was ruled a tax increase by the Supreme Court. That was the only way they found it constitutional. It's called Obamacare, and it's the largest one in U.S. history. He added more to the debt than any of his predecessors combined, did Barack Obama. Now, Donald Trump's on track to do that. He's only in year one. Hopefully he can turn that around. Or, you know what? We'll blast away at Donald Trump for that too. But I think that so many of these people try to pigeonhole us and to say, well, you guys would be really upset if this were a Democrat. Well, yeah, because we'd get all the negatives. We'd get terrible policies, anti-American policies, and we'd get somebody who's a reprobate. With Donald Trump, you have a guy that seems to be turning his life around. He has turned away from being a Democrat. Remember, Donald Trump was a Democrat all of his life. And then all of a sudden he says, look, I've had a change of heart on this whole abortion thing. I'm turning. I understand how wicked and how terrible that is. I've been a Democrat all my life. I realize how wicked and terrible that was. Now I'm turning. Remember, all of this stuff that Donald Trump had done, is accused of doing or had done, he did when he was a Democrat. And he's chosen a different path. And you know how I know you left-wingers out there, I know you guys don't get this, but, we tend to forgive, we Christians. 281-558-5738, 281-558 KSEV. Coming up next, more kids are walking out. You guys heard that in Town Hall News. They're walking out of the classroom. I got a letter that I want to read to you guys from a 24-year veteran of the classroom. And I think y'all like it. But first, we got to deal with Tillerson his exodus and Donald Trump's visit to California ahead of talking to the White House and the Republican National Committee. Coming up next, the Chris Salcedo Show here on The Voice. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Chris Salcedo Show, 281-558-5738. 281-558-KSEV. Before I get into Trump's discussions yesterday about Tillerson and his resignation and, of course, his trip to California, let me bring on a call here. Mike, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. I'm glad you waited.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes,
I'd like to say, obviously the Iranian regime is not, it's an oppressive regime. It's not one that I would trust. But the way I look at things, I try to look at the facts first, and then from the facts, draw conclusions and make decisions and make policies. But
that's a smart bet.
Facts are, sorry?
That's a smart way to go.
Okay, so here's a fact that, as you mentioned, this money belonged to the deposed regime of Iran, the Shah.
Correct.
The Shah's regime, the king of Iran.
$400 million at $1979.
Right. Now, before the Shah took over, Iran had chosen the path of democracy, and they had a democratically elected government and a democratically elected prime minister. Now, at the time, prior to Iran getting its independence, and it was controlled by the British basically went in there, more or less occupied Iran and took all their oil. Now, once they got independence, they chose the path of democracy. They had the elections. They had this democratically elected prime minister. He decided, you know what? The oil in Iran doesn't belong to British Petroleum. I think it was the predecessor to British Petroleum, but the oil in Iran doesn't belong to BP. It belongs to Iranians. So he basically kicked the product of the colonization of Iran, the BP, kicked them out and took control over the country's resources.
Okay.
Well, now the CIA, the British urged the CIA, and the CIA appointed the grandson of Teddy Roosevelt. His name was Kermit Roosevelt. He was a CIA agent. They sent him over there to the U.S. Embassy with suitcases of cash, and he fomented a revolution, and they overthrew the Shah. So the Shah, this money that you said belonged to this deposed regime, was a regime that we overthrew. I mean, was a regime that we put in place after overthrowing a democratic government. It was a very oppressive repressive.
No, Mike. I'm not debating anything you're saying, but what I'm saying is that we did a deal with the regime that was deposed. Okay, we entered in, and I'm not talking about the morality of all of this. I'm talking about contract law. You enter into a contract with a certain government. It's overthrown by the mullahs, so your obligation goes out the door with that government. So you don't have an obligation to repay $400 million with interest, which Obama figured out it was something like $2 billion that he gave to the Iranians. But they didn't do the deal. It wasn't their money. It was the deposed Shah. So what I'm saying to you is contract law says that you're only obligated to give that money back to the people you made the deal with. But Barack Obama didn't see it that way. Barack Obama wanted to give it back to the terrorists. And I don't think that was the right thing to do. And as a matter of fact, Bill Clinton didn't think it was the right thing to do. And George Bush, both Bushes didn't think it was the right thing to do. Reagan didn't think it was the right thing to do.
Okay, but I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really speak to contract law, but...
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's my whole point. That's the whole point of my conversation. Everything that you're talking about is true. Everything that you're talking, but it has nothing to do with giving money back to a radicalized Islamic fundamentalist terrorist regime, which they didn't deserve.
Well, I also draw a wider I mean, there's a wider point here. The wider point is that.
Well, Mike, I know there's a wider point you're trying to make. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to make a very concise point that the American people, the American taxpayer, did not need to give $1.9 billion to the number one state sponsor of terror, and some of it in unmarked foreign currency that couldn't be traced. We didn't need to do that. That's my point.
Well, and I can't disagree with your point.
There you go.
My point was, and you can make a very valid argument, as you probably have right there, that we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But my point is that we've got a Secretary of State right now, or incoming Secretary of State, who said 2,000 sorties over attacking Iran and we're done. Very simple task. Maybe it's that simple. Let's run 2,000 sorties over Iran and see what happens. Bomb the heck out of them. How did it work out in Iraq? How did that work out for us? I'm saying we need to. Now, let me make something clear. I never voted for anyone named Obama. I never voted for anyone named Clinton. I voted for both President Bushes.
Yeah, you know what, Mike?
For Trump.
I understand what you're saying, but again, you remember, Mike Pompeo is going to be in the State Department. He's not going to be in the Department of Defense. So he's not going to have the military at his beck and call. He's going to have the diplomats. He'll have the diplomatic corps, which I believe, man, has got to get a spine and actually remember that they're supposed to be Americans and they're supposed to be working in America's best interest, not in other countries' best interests. That's what I like about Mike Pompeo and the fact that he's going to be getting in there and getting that job done, because it needs to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. I'm all for that. I'm just saying let's be smart about it.
Well,
because
hey, we can't look at Mike. How stupid is it with the current regime right now inside of the State Department? These cats have been asleep at the wheel for almost 3 decades, and they allowed the North Koreans to become a nuclear power. Now, how smart is that?
I'm not defending that. Maybe we should have bombed North Korea.
Well, no, I'm not saying. No, look, again, I'm not talking bombing. I'm talking about fire and fury diplomacy. Now, you've got to have the credible use of force behind you when you're out there being diplomatic. But I mean, the current diplomatic corps is responsible for this lousy situation we found ourselves in, and all these Democrats saying, "Well, I hope that Donald Trump takes the State Department with him." It's like, why the hell would you want to have a whole bunch of people that have been responsible for the failed outcomes at your back? You want new people in there who are looking at things differently, because the way we're doing it wrong right now, Mike, is what I'm trying to tell you. We're doing it wrong.
I'm all for it. I agree with that. We've been doing it wrong, and I'm all for a change, but hopefully it's for the better.
Hey, I'm right there with you, buddy. I'm right there with you.
I mean, I know, but Mr. Trump has kind of subcontracted our foreign policy, especially in the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Well, they live there. They kind of live there. I mean,
I'm sorry?
They live there. It is their region, and I would much rather have those guys on the front lines with our cooperation and our help being the face over there, rather than us being the ones trying to make all of the pulling all the strings or doing all the upfront heavy lifting. Those people live in that neighborhood, and they're the most threatened by regimes in that neighborhood. So
yeah, but they're not necessarily out for our interests. They're pulling us into wars over there. Iraq War, for example, the Yemen War.
Well, they're going to be in it. They're going to be in it for their. Every nation should anyway, except for America. Every nation has its best interests at heart, except for in the last 8 years under Obama, we haven't had it here in the United States. Mike, I appreciate the call, man. Thank you very much. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Speaking of the State Department, Rex Tillerson yesterday.
I received a call today from the President of the United States at a little after noontime from Air Force One, and I've also spoken to White House Chief of Staff Kelly to ensure we have clarity as to the days ahead. What is most important is to ensure an orderly and smooth transition during a time that the country continues to face significant policy.
He didn't sound happy about leaving.
And national security challenges. As such, effective at the end of the day, I'm delegating all responsibilities of the Office of the Secretary to Deputy Secretary of State Sullivan. My commission as Secretary of State will terminate at midnight, March the 31st. Between now and then, I will address a few administrative matters related to my departure and work towards a smooth and orderly transition for Secretary of State designate Mike Pompeo.
Did you hear his hand slam the desk as he was turning the page? Boom, Mike Pompeo, boom. Yeah, Rex Tillerson isn't happy leaving. Rex Tillerson had a different idea about foreign policy than Donald Trump. And Tillerson didn't mention how much of an honor it was to be asked by Donald Trump. He had no kind words to say about Donald Trump. Trump, though, on the other hand, had some words.
I'm really at a point where we're getting very close to having the cabinet and other things that I want. But I think Mike Pompeo will be a truly great Secretary of State. I have total confidence in him. And as far as Rex Tillerson is concerned, I very much appreciate his commitment and his service, and I wish him well.
You guys can be the judge as to who behaved more magnanimously, President of the United States or the soon-to-be former Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson. Again, you guys know I wasn't a fan to begin with. We'll talk more about this with the Republican National Committee spokesperson and a spokesperson who used to work over at the White House and the Vice President's office. Coming up, the Chris Salcedo Show here on The Voice of Texas. Let's get to our guest, Mark Lauder. He is a former special assistant to the president and the press secretary to the vice president, currently serving as a national spokesperson for the president and vice president. Sir, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Chris.
Rex Tillerson let go yesterday. Look, I'm going to be honest with you because it's what I've told the audience since the day he was picked. I didn't get it, number one. Number two, I was a big fan of John Bolton. And it seems that a lot of the conservative movement's instincts were pretty right about Rex Tillerson. He was a nice enough guy. But in that cesspool that has become the U.S. State Department, we needed somebody in there to go and clean house. And Rex Tillerson wasn't the guy.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of respect for the secretary. I know him fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
And like the president said yesterday, we have a lot of respect for the secretary. He's done a lot of great work. But there were some areas where he and the president weren't in complete alignment. So now was the right time. And the president showed the leadership to say, as we venture into this era where there are talks with North Korea, the Iran deal is coming up again for renewal, and the shocking and disturbing stories that are coming out about destabilizing activities with Russia, now was the time to make the change. And I think Secretary Pompeo, once confirmed, is going to be an outstanding Secretary of State.
No, I think so too. I think that's definitely an upgrade. And again, that goes back to, and again, if I came out sounding too harsh against Mr. Tillerson, that wasn't my intent. He's a nice enough guy, and I believe a very competent CEO. And I think his CEO instincts told him to befriend everybody, including the team that he was given over at the State Department. But look, I think the State Department has been a hindrance to pro-American policies rather than an asset over these last 3 or 4 decades. I'm reminded over at the U.S. State Department that there is no department over there that Americans can go to have our issues represented when the State Department gets engaged. Every other country around the planet has its interests represented there at the U.S. State Department. So I think there was a culture change that needed to happen there. I was talking about it with Colonel Tony Schaefer about this very same thing. Like Ronald Reagan needed to leave the State Department at home and get some new ambassadors appointed to go help negotiate with the Soviets at Reykjavik. I think that President Trump needed some new help at the State Department as he potentially goes to sit down with the North Korean dictator.
I think you're absolutely right. And that's the one thing that we continually see under President Trump. And it does harken back to the days of President Reagan, where we are standing up for our interests on the world stage, and we are not going to just continue to limp along and do what has been done. You're seeing it with North Korea, 27 years of kicking the can down the road, and now we have a North Korea with nuclear weapons and the technology to be able to deliver those weapons here shortly to anywhere in the world, to the United States and to our allies. The president has said no. And we're going to take the necessary steps. It's great that the North Koreans say that they're willing to talk. But we've also got issues with Iran right now, with Russia. And so having Secretary Pompeo there speaking clearly with the president's voice, having a new director at the CIA who was even hailed by the previous administration's CIA directors as being the right choice and the first woman to lead that agency in the history of our country. These are bold steps by the president, and I think he's just continuing to fulfill that promise of standing strong and putting America first.
I want to get to Gina here in a minute. I want to remind the folks who we're talking to, Mark Lauder, folks. He's a former special assistant to the president and press secretary to the vice president, Mike Pence. Let's talk about something you brought up with Russia, because it's been a bugaboo of the Chris Salcedo shows for a long time. This fact that we came down on the Barack Obama administration for basically allowing Vladimir Putin to run rampant as a war criminal for the entire 8 years he was in the Oval Office, to the point where Russia was attacking our allies that we had promised to defend if they would give up their nuclear weapons stockpile once the Soviet Union fell. I'm talking, of course, of Ukraine. So we bashed, rightly so, Mr. Obama, and then it just seems that Donald Trump is reluctant to basically call Russia what it is under the guidance of Putin, an enemy or an adversary to the United States of America. Do you see the president pivoting on that anytime soon to actually take seriously the threat that Russia poses?
I think there's that growing realization, and here's the issue that we face. It is a fine line. In some areas, Russia is working with us on certain issues, and in other areas, they are definitely not working in the interest of the greater world order. And that you're talking in Ukraine, Crimea, some of their activities as it relates to Iran, to North Korea. These are areas where we need greater engagement and greater work with the Soviet Union. And then we need their continued help as it relates to fighting in the war on terror and some of the radical Islamic terrorism. But we've seen some very disturbing signs and signals coming out of Russia, and we need strong American leadership to be able to confront that. The president is showing it. We know that Mike Pompeo, as the Secretary of State, the former or soon to be the former CIA director with a history in the military, West Point, Congress, he gets it.
Yeah.
And he and the president have a tremendous chemistry that they can go in, and you know that they're going to stand strong together for America's interests. But we have to recognize that in certain areas they stand with us, in certain areas they are working against us, and only through American strength is the world safer.
Yeah, and Russia's deploying nerve agent into the West, killing a couple of people. I mean, that requires a stiff and swift response, as if the invasion of an ally and the killing of their citizens and the stealing of their land wasn't enough for the United States. Mark Lauder is our guest right now, former special assistant to the president and press secretary to Vice President Pence. We mentioned CIA director designate Gina Haspel. She's a nominee, of course. She's got to go before Congress. And the left wing in this country is attacking her for having some sort of jurisdiction over what the so-called black sites during the Bush administration after 9/11. I find it funny that, number one, here are the Democrats attacking the first woman to head the CIA, number one. Number two, the fact that she was taking seriously the threat of radicalized Islamic fundamentalist terrorism on the United States post 9/11, and the Democrats, for politics' sake, have not taken it seriously since then. It seems to me to be a loser either way with their opposition to this nominee.
You're absolutely right. And once again, they're showing their weakness as we are confronting the challenges and our enemies around the world. Even former President Obama's CIA leadership teams are praising her nomination to lead the CIA. It's something that the American people should get behind. We need strong leadership again. And so that's why the president made this nomination. I think once she gets through that confirmation, we will be stronger for it alongside then Secretary Pompeo, the president. It's a great leadership team. But my hope is that what we see is a change in Senate Democrats from their era of obstruction, standing in the way, putting up roadblocks and hurdles to every nominee our president puts forth. And in many cases, once they've gone through the gauntlet of roadblocks and procedural issues, they're getting confirmed 96, 98 to nothing.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming, but they are just slowing the gears of government to try to play politics. And I hope that when it comes to the Secretary of State confirmation, the CIA director's confirmations, that they drop their partisan sham and put these nominations forward so we have strong leadership again in these agencies, standing with the president, confronting our enemies and challenges around the world.
Yeah, the quickest way around that too is, and you can bring this back to our pals at the RNC, is to blunt this so-called blue wave that I don't see developing, but could in the wake of there's some cautionary tales coming out of Pennsylvania. Either way you look at it. Mark Lauder, everybody, former special assistant to the president and press secretary to Vice President Pence. Sir, thank you very much for being here on the Chris Salcedo Show. Appreciate the 411.
Oh, thanks, Chris, and I look forward to being back.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Chris Salcedo Show. Donald Trump from yesterday.
We disagreed on things. When you look at the Iran deal, I think it's terrible. I guess he thought it was okay. I wanted to either break it or do something, and he felt a little bit differently. So we were not really thinking the same.
Yeah, well, you know what? And if you're Secretary of State and you aren't on the same page, bye-bye Secretary of State. I don't care who you are. I mean, it'd be like Barack Obama having a Secretary of State that believed in putting America first. It wouldn't jive. So Barack Obama needed to put Hillary Clinton in. And Barack Obama needed to put John Kerry in, somebody who was invested in other countries' best interests and not America's. See, that was more symbiotic with Obama's plan. Trump on Tillerson.
I respect his intellect. I respect the process that we've all gone through together. We have a very good relationship for whatever reason, chemistry, whatever it is. Why do people get along? I've always, right from the beginning, from day one, I've gotten along well with Mike Pompeo. And frankly, I get along well with Rex, too.
Well, yes, and getting along is definitely part of the equation here, folks. I just think being on the same ideological wavelength is important as well. The same policy wavelength is important as well. And what I believe that Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo discovered is that, man, hey, I believe that our foreign policy has been a colossal failure for the last, well, at least 8 years. And the previous administration, maybe even before that. We need to do something different. And Rex Tillerson wasn't there. So if you're not going to be on board, then, and Rex Tillerson openly defied Donald Trump on certain policy positions when it came to Iran, that terrible Iranian deal. Tillerson's, I kind of like it. It's like, you do? Really? Okay. I don't get how somebody can, but, different strokes. But it's quite different when you have to have somebody carrying your agenda. And Rex Tillerson wasn't the guy. And plus, as stated, I think the State Department needed to be cleaned out. And Rex Tillerson just wanted to make everybody his friends. That's okay. That's all right. I've got that teacher's note coming up for you folks really quickly, but I got to give you some news. Overnight, SB 4 was upheld by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. So now it goes on to the Supreme Court, where it'll be upheld as well. SB 4, anti-sanctuary city law here in Texas, will be upheld. And all you folks who are cheerleaders for illegal alien felons, screw you. I'm sorry. Let me put that a little more nicely. No, I'll just stick with screw you, because if you are for illegal alien felons, I'm against you. So those of you who think Libby Schaaf is doing a great service for foreign nationals, making sure they can commit felonies in the United States, if you think Sanctuary City Sally is good for the state of Texas, Well, okay. Let's throw him in jail. Because very soon it'll be affirmed by the Supreme Court that sanctuary cities, laws governing sanctuary cities in these states can be prevented from violating federal law, from thwarting federal law, the way Sanctuary City Sally is doing, and the same way that Mayor Libby Schaaf of Oakland is doing. So that's some good news. Donald Trump speaking yesterday, speaking of illegal immigration, at Prototypes of the Wall.
If you don't have a wall system, we're not going to have a country. There's a lot of problems in Mexico. They have a lot of problems over there. And they have the cartels. And the cartels, we're fighting the cartels. And we're fighting them hard. Nobody ever fought them like we fought them. And we're looking very much at the wall with some see-through capability on the other side and then solid concrete on top or steel and concrete on top. The round piece that you see up here or you see more clearly back there, the larger it is, the better it is because it's very hard to get over the top. It's really deterrent from getting over the top. Who would think? Who would think? But getting over the top is easy. These are like professional mountain climbers. They're incredible climbers. They can't climb some of these walls. Some of them they can. Those are the walls we're not using.
What does that sound like to you? That sound like the President of the United States, or that sound like an architect on a job site? Or a job foreman on a job? He's a builder. It's what he does. He builds things. Oh, that wall that can be scaled? Oh, we're not going to use that one. That wall that can't be scaled, that's the one we're going to use. Now, there's a whole bunch of illegals out there. Who was this? This was Yahoo News, I think, was putting this out. In Tijuana, Mexico, Eladio Sanchez is unimpressed by the 8 border wall prototypes looming over his house in Tijuana, Mexico, almost within spitting distance of where U.S. President Donald Trump visited on Tuesday. Did you notice how the writer indicated that, it'd be a good thing to spit on Donald Trump? Very subliminal, but I caught it. Anyway, at age 30, he has already snuck over the border several times and doesn't expect Trump's wall to have much effect on, well, what this author calls undocumented migrants like him, what I will call an illegal alien like him. Well, okay. Okay, Mr. Arrogance Pants, you are the reason why we need a wall. Because of your open defiance, your belief that you belong in my country without my permission. You're the reason. And countless other millions like you from all over the globe would think you have a right to be in America without our permission. So, you know what? I hope guys like this keep talking. And I hope Yameli Ortega continues to write articles like this of defiant illegal aliens who are not impressed with America's efforts to stop illegal immigration. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Ricardo, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. Glad you made it.
Hello, Chris. A great show.
Thank you, sir.
I've been listening to you for a couple of years now.
God bless you.
I'm also a liberty-loving Latino like yourself.
Nice.
Hardworking.
Yep.
A contractor. My question is, when are we going to get a new Attorney General?
We talked about this yesterday, Ricardo. I don't know if you were tuned into the program yesterday, but I think we're stuck with the pretend Attorney General Jeff Sessions and the actual Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Here's the reason why. Because the never-Trumpers inside of the United States Senate have told Donald Trump, if you fire Jeff Sessions, we will not nominate a new replacement. And if you fire Rod Rosenstein, we'll not nominate a replacement. These guys are entrenched subverters of the Trump administration, and the establishment likes them right where they are to continue to undermine this administration. Now, I'm not sure why Jeff Sessions has been so cowed. I believe that Rod Rosenstein has something on Sessions, so Sessions is relegated to being a hood ornament, while Rod Rosenstein is the guy actually running the Justice Department. But either way, I think it's because, and why do you think Trump is out there blasting away at Jeff Sessions every chance he gets? He wants him to quit. And you know what? And many more disgraces from the actually calling out his disgraces by the president. He just may. But I think the only reason why he's still in there is because Rod Rosenstein has told him, hey, you can't leave. You need to be my shield because I'm trying to keep my moldy butt out of jail.
Right, okay.
That's my take on it.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, that's what I wanted to say. You know, I'm tired of nothing being done. I think more, if we had a stronger attorney general, more could be done with the things that are, you know, going on right now. I always thought Giuliani would have been a much better attorney general.
Yeah, I think so too. And you know what, Ricardo, I got to tell you that we were coming down on Jeff Sessions, but we said at least he's doing stuff on the border, and then he shows up in California in the presence of a mayor who openly aided and abetted illegal alien felons and openly obstructed justice. And the best this hood ornament of an attorney general could come up with was, how dare you? How dare you? He said. So no shackles, no arrest warrant, no announcement of an investigation, just how dare you? And that's the best he could come up with. And then we're all supposed to sit here and applaud. Oh, yes, look how tough you're talking. Really?
I thought that was weak. She should be in jail now.
Amen to that, brother. Hey, thanks
keep
for
up the good work.
Thank you, man. Hey, you keep listening. I appreciate you being out there. 281-558-5738. It's the Chris Salcedo Show. Back in a minute on the Voice of Texas. And that's going to do it here for the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide on the Vida Television Network. I want to remind everyone that I think I'm one of the few individuals on television who actually allows you to directly interact with me, unfiltered, live. All you got to do is call AM 700 KSEV 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV from the hours of 7:30 a.m. Eastern until 10 o'clock Eastern, and let your voice be heard. Maybe you don't think we covered something fairly, or maybe you don't think we've covered something enough. It's your chance to weigh in. You can also do so via social media. Go to chrissalcedo.com. All of our contact information is there. Or you can do it live in real time during those same hours at Chris Salcedo TX. Even off hours, we respond to Twitter, and it's a good chance if you make a compelling argument, it'll be featured on the show if I'm not on the air at the time the following day. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide here on the Vida Television Network. We'll see you next time.